Joining me now to discuss Dr. Carson's tax plan and the economic state of our nation is economist and president of the Market Institute, Charles Sauer. Charlie, hi, how you doing?
Hi, thanks for having me on.
So what's your reaction to Dr. Carson's 14.9% flat tax plan?
Well, I like where Dr. Carson is going with this. He started by talking about a 10% tithing tax, and I was really hard on him at the beginning of the campaign because taxes aren't tithing. Taxes are what you pay when the government puts a gun at your head, and it's not what we give to our churches, and it's not what we give to charity. But he's actually sat down and thought about this tax, and the 14.9% flat tax is a good rate, and it's a lot of thought into his tax because it's a consumption tax. So in politics, we get to talk about two things. We generally talk about taxing income and an income tax, but economists like what's called a consumption tax, and that taxes everything one time in, and then it doesn't disadvantage spending or saving after that time. And so by Dr. Carson having a flat tax, by Ted Cruz having a flat tax, by Paul having a flat tax, we have a lot of our Republican candidates thinking about a consumption tax. And even the ones that don't have a true flat tax, both Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio and Donald Trump are both moving in the direction of a flat tax or a consumption tax. So what we have is really all of the players, the GOP primary season, have really good tax plans that are doing a good thing for America and hopefully putting us on the right trajectory. But I really like where Dr. Carson's going and the thought that he's put into the plan.
Sure, it sounds like it's good economically. Now let's talk about it from the perspective of a taxpayer, just someone who's maybe not as interested in what happens to the economy as a whole, but just from our personal perspective, what is the advantage of a flat tax? I mean, it sounds pretty appealing to me just to pay 14.9% of my income and to only have to fill out one page when I'm filing my taxes. What are some of the other benefits to us as taxpayers?
Well, I can tell you one of the reasons that I became an economist and one of the reasons that I started identifying on the right side of politics was Ross Perot saying if you make under this amount, you don't pay anything, and if you make above this amount, you pay my rate. And so Ross Perot was one of the ones that started talking about this and brought the flat tax into popular culture however many years ago. And so that is exactly what you're talking about. That's one of the benefits of the flat tax is the predictability. You know that if you make a certain amount of money, you're going to pay a certain amount of tax, and there's no disincentive for earning an extra dollar. What we see in our current system is if you're receiving welfare, there's a high marginal tax rate as you get out of that poverty level. If you're rich and you're making an extra dollar, we see a tax system that actually benefits avoiding taxes or buying more health care. A flat tax takes away those disincentives and says, you know, you save it, you spend it, you do what you want with your own money. We're not going to hurt you for making more money. And that's why a flat tax is really great for the economy, but really good for the individual planning and families.
Right. It also eliminates the huge headache of all the stress of having to file your taxes, not knowing which form to use, how many, and ending up having to have someone help you do it and spending money there. I hate that every year. I'd love to see a flat tax where it's only a postcard like Ted Cruz says, or one page like it would be for Dr. Carson's. Let's do a quick comparison of the candidates' tax plans. So Rand Paul's also proposing a flat tax. 14.5% is his proposal. That's essentially the same as Dr. Carson's. Ted Cruz is proposing what he calls a simple flat tax, 10%. Now, in your opinion, is it possible to have a 10% flat tax and still raise the revenue the government needs?
Well, I think Ted Cruz is running into a real problem here. As I said when we started, Ben Carson actually announced a 10% flat tax when he was first talking about what his tax plan would be earlier on the stump. And there was a lot of pushback because of exactly what you said. It's hard to get enough revenue for the current government size when you're only taxing people 10%.
And I think that's exactly the point of Ted Cruz, though. He's not wanting to fund the government at their current size. He wants to only give enough money to the government, only raise enough revenue to pay for what we actually need. So he has cuts going along with that tax plan. So that's probably part of his point.
Well, That is part of his point, but then we may as well have a 3% tax plan or a 2% tax plan. When you get economists together in a room, and these can be center-right or fully right economists, they tend to agree that the right size of government tends to be somewhere around 18%. You have people that range from 12 to 23%, but the consensus seems to be around 18%. And so a 10% tax rate isn't going to get people there, but 10% isn't exactly even right for Ted Cruz because his isn't a flat tax. He still allows you a mortgage interest deduction and a charitable deduction, and that's just really bad tax plans. When you look at where the mortgage interest deduction goes, that goes to the people that live in Nancy Pelosi's district. It doesn't go to the people that live in red districts who tend to have low tax, low property value states. This is not a good tax plan. It's not a good idea, and it doesn't provide even enough government for what I see as the Cruz government, who wants to increase people at the border, increase what we're doing, which tends to grow government by all estimates.
All right, let's talk about Donald Trump's tax plan. Trump's plan has 4 brackets, 0%, 10%, 20%, and 25%. In his plan, if you're single and earn less than $25,000 a year, or if you're married and jointly file and earn less than $50,000 a year, you will not owe any income tax. What do you think of this plan?
Well, I love the Trump tax plan because it is a perfect microcosm of who Donald Trump is. First off, he basically cribbed his tax plan from either Jeb Bush or Marco Rubio. It doesn't matter. It's been a basic tax plan that's been around since Ronald Reagan. Both Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio's plans mimic Ronald Reagan's 1986 tax reform, which is lauded as the major tax reform for the Republican Party. But Trump makes it one better. He adds in his 4th tax bracket. It's bigger and better than everybody else. It doesn't just have 3 tax brackets. It has 4, and that is the way that Trump does it. Of course, that 4th tax bracket is the $0 tax bracket, as you just mentioned. And everybody else, Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio, both have a $0 tax bracket as well. It's just assumed when you're talking about taxes. Trump just makes it where you can write in a postcard and say, I win, which I don't think that that's exactly winning when you aren't paying taxes, when you're not making enough to pay taxes.
But he wants to set his tax plan apart, like you said, because it's very similar to Marco Rubio's, although Rubio's does have a 30% top rate, which I think may be a little bit high if you're talking tax reform, but that remains to be seen. Charlie, I appreciate you coming on the program today. I hope you'll come back soon.